Welcome to the Smart Zone demonstration series for Release 5.0. In this release, we'll be covering the new features available in Release 5.0. In this demonstration, I'll be covering the enhancements to the Syslog export feature. These enhancements permit administrators to specify which logging events, either general logging, client flow logging, or both, are forwarded to primary and secondary Syslog servers. In addition to these controls, Release 5.0 will also append the URL and SSID to client flow logs, making identification and filtering easier for administrators. So let's get started. Here I have my virtual Smart Zone. It's the Essentials edition. I'll go ahead and log in here. And once I log in, first thing I'll point out to you is this is release 5.0.0.0.675. This is the initial release of the Smart Zone 5.0 version of software. Again, this is the Essentials version. This functionality I'm about to show here is the same whether it's for the Essentials or the high-scale version of Smart Zone. So let's take a look at this. Let's start with our zone configuration. So in wireless LANs, we're waiting for this to come up. We can select our zone and we can apply a configuration for all wireless LANs and access points in the zone. So let's go ahead and click that edit button. And when this comes up, we'll take a look at our configuration options here for Syslog exporting. So down here in the Syslog section, we'll select this and we can enable external Syslog server for our access points. Now, the new thing here is that we now have a primary and a secondary server that we can configure for Syslog capabilities. So we can configure both of these servers, and the other new feature that we can configure here is the protocol. So we've always been able to configure a single server, and let's go ahead and put one in here. And the port, we can always specify the port, but a new feature we have here is to specify the protocol that we want to send this over. So we can either send this through UDP and have it sent and hope that it gets to the destination, or with TCP where we get verification and a three-way handshake for these Syslog messages going to the remote server. So let's go ahead and put in another Syslog server here as well. And these two were always available to us in the previous releases, so we can still do the same event facilities and the same priorities. But what's new now is whether we want to send just general logs or only client flow logs or both by checking these boxes. So let's go ahead and select both and say OK. Now when we do this, this configuration will be applied to all APs in the zone. So let's go ahead and take a look at an access point and see what we can do now with 5.0. So in this zone we just configured, we have an access point. It's a R510. We'll go ahead and configure that. And down here in the advanced options, we can configure Syslog settings. So here's our Syslog options. We can enable Syslog or we can leave it disabled and we can override. So by selecting override, it allows us to deviate from what is configured on the Syslog settings for the entire zone. So if we want to enable a Syslog server, or we can override and disable the Syslog functionality for this particular AP, but we'll enable it, and we could select different IP addresses where we want to send logs for this particular access point. There might be several reasons of why you want to do that, and you can think about that from an administrative standpoint to determine if it's useful for you. So this allows us to override just for this particular AP, and we can also override whether we only want client flow logs, general logs, or anything else in here. So we'll go ahead and keep this to all logs, just going to another server. And that's the ability we have here at the AP level, which we had in the previous release as well, but we have all of the same new functionality where we can define a primary and a secondary, as well as the unique protocols for each one of those servers. Now lastly, and this is the same functionality again as the previous release, for that client flow data, you have to actually configure the wireless LAN to forward that data to Smart Zone and be able to perform that functionality. So again, in the WLAN configuration options, in advanced options, down here at the bottom, you have to have this box here that says client flow data logging. This is a key piece to be able to allow client flow data to be logged to the Syslog server. If this is not enabled here, this functionality will not work. So the key pieces you have to have here is it has to be enabled at the WLAN, and it has to be enabled either on the zone or overridden at the access point. But whichever is the priority, the overridden AP configuration or just the overall zone configuration, if the AP configuration is not overriding, that has to be enabled, and this checkbox here has to be enabled as well. So we'll say OK here, and we are ready to go with client flow logging and general logging to two Syslog servers using different protocols for each server, and that's the functionality you get with the Release 5.0 in relation to Syslog export in SmartZone version 5.0. So this concludes our demonstration for the Syslog export enhancements in Release 5.0 of SmartZone. Hopefully it was informative for you, and keep in mind that this is part of a series of several new enhancements in Release 5.0, so please check back in the education portal for other available videos. Thanks for viewing this demonstration.